Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Lancaster Criminal Justice meeting. We'd like to call the meeting to order, please.
Commissioners Brown,
Present.
Fuller, Harris,
Present.
Herr,
Present.
Mercy, Vice Chair Rodriguez, Chairman Little.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Dr. Brown.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to mention that Vice Chair Rodriguez is recovering from home, got excused from the hospital, so we'd like to wish her all our best wishes and miss her and just speedy recovery. So reason why she's not here today with us this morning. So Lisa, if you're watching, get well quick. We need you. Any presentations? Okay.
Welcome, Lieutenant.
Welcome, Lieutenant. Thank you. No speaker cards for unagendized items? Okay. Let's move forward to approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? And we have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Please vote. Yes, approval of the minutes. Reports. Sheriff's Department, how are you? Saw you this morning. You gave me my quarterback. I got to tell you, we had our golf tournament, and we had a putting and chipping contest, and I gave a quarter to the mark. So she came to me this morning, and she goes, "Mr. Little, here's this quarter." And I looked at her, and I went, like, I need to make a telephone call to somebody because I'm in trouble. And I looked at her, and she goes, and she kind of smiled, and I'm going, she gave me my quarterback from Monday, so thank you.
You're welcome, sir. I told you I was going to owe you a quarter that day, so I want to make sure I didn't.
Well, yeah, obviously my mind is not as good at my age, so thank you so much. So,
thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to start with our Crime Commission report for August. For our burglaries, we had a total of 88 in the month of August, with 52 in residentials and 36 commercial. For our robberies, we had a total of 30. 11 were armed, 19 were strong-armed. For our crime prevention, we use our social media to do our public announcements, and that we use our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We attend our neighborhood watch and our business before breakfast. For our community engagement, we have Deputy Tom, who attended our coffee with vets at Crazy Autos. We went to a kinder care to do a presentation on the west side with the little kids. We had our monthly Crazy Autos, coffee with the deputy at Crazy Autos. And in August, we had our National Night Out, where we partnered up with the city of Lancaster and had our sheriff come up for that event. That National Night Out is actually like somewhat of a competition between departments. And last year, for the sheriff's department, we got third place, so we were hoping to get first place this year, and they haven't told us what position we came in this year, so hopefully we came in first. But it was a good turnout. Everybody had a good time with the kids, passing out stickers and just meeting with the community. I think the community appreciated that the sheriff came all the way up to Lancaster for that night, so it was a good turnout. And our next one is going to be our ComStat for the city. Did I push something? It's blinking. Sorry. Oh, here we go. Sorry. For the first one, it's going to be our homicide slide, and we are at our average of 1. For our rapes are continuing to go down. We're at 5. For our robberies, we have 31 robberies. Our aggravated assaults are slowly decreasing. We're at 63. For our domestic violence-related aggravated assaults, we're down to past our average, down to probably about 5. Our burglaries are at 88. Our larcenies are at 187 larcenies. Our grand thefts, we're at 71. And our arsons, we're at our average, which is 3. For our leaps information, during the month of August, LSD formally logged 35 LEAP service calls, supported tactical field operations. LEAPS was dispatched 92 times, totaling 26.7 hours, and was airborne, providing strategic surveillance for 277.8 hours. LEAPS provided airborne observation and support in the arrest of 5 suspects. Notable incidents during the month of August included air surveillance and support of deputies during the recovery of several stolen vehicles. LEAPS also proudly participated in the City of Lancaster National Night Out. A demonstration booth included a mobile antenna, live video feed, allowing the public to experience LEAPS. LASD sworn deputies are utilized as LEAPS ground system operators. Operators are able to easily search for and obtain recorded video from the LEAPS system to aid in criminal prosecutions. For more information, you can go to our LEAPS website, which is www.arrowviewwllc.com. We did have 5 arrests, 9 fight and assaults, 10 burglary and robbery, 3 traffic stops, 13 other suspicious circumstances, and 1 person with a gun. On the backside, we had 39% of people, 15 property, 13% arrests and detentions, 7% vehicles, and 26% observations. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
I just had a question. Happily, I'm seeing that domestic violence is on the decline and continues to go that way. What would you attribute to that?
More awareness, probably, with the public, educating our public about domestic violence, and putting out flyers. When we have our coffee with deputies, we talk about the reporting stuff to or seeing any violent trends within your family, to reach out to someone, to a program, to see if there's seek any counseling. So education is hopefully what's happening.
Well, it's
there.
working.
So
Good job. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Grand theft autos. On that, I see we have a little spike of it continuing to go up, then it came back down this last time. Any indication what, why, or I know in the past we've been way below average, so is it,
That just continues with the same trend as in July, but it maintains the same. But we were hoping to see a decrease with the 5 in custody that we had.
That's right. I remember
July.
last report you had a ring that was okay.
But it seems to just still be there.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you
sir.
for everything you do. Really
Chairman
appreciate
Little,
it.
can I just make a comment as it relates to grand theft auto? You know, we have a lot of out-of-the-area crews that come in, and they're working lots of areas. Like, if you look at what's happening in West Hollywood right now, okay, because of similar things that were happening in San Francisco. It's like you're advertising people not to lock their vehicles because of folks breaking windows to get into cars, and then the next thing you know, the crews come in and start stealing cars. Okay, so their numbers are way up, and these crews work all over the county. But as Yenny said, they made some significant arrests that are related to that, but then how much time are folks spending in jail, okay, for that particular crime, and then they're back out and the law enforcement's dealing with them again. So that's something, if you can look at how it's done, you can see it's a wave all the way through the trends on that, because the folks come in and out of jail and then get right back into business. So that's they work very hard at targeting that. That's been a focus for us that year. I think it's been successful. But again, at the same time, you're dealing with other issues that are outside the control of law enforcement.
Thank you. Los Angeles County Probation Department. How are you, sir? Good morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, I'm Robert Sepulveda. I'm a supervisor for the probation department here in LA County. And our office is the regional office for the AB 109 office here at the Antelope Valley in Lancaster. We'll go over some of the data that I was received yesterday. If you have any questions at the end or during the time, if you don't understand the lingo, please feel free to interrupt me and we'll go from there. Revocations or violations, we had 19 this past month of September. We have approximately 433 AB 109 clients, if you will, defendants, cases in the region, and not just isolated to Lancaster. Unfortunately, we don't have that divided up. So it's going to be Palmdale, Lancaster, Acton, Lake LA, to the border of San Bernardino in Kern County. We had 11 sanctions. Those are written sanctions. Those are warnings. Those are warnings that the person has to sign off on, understanding that they may have violated some way, somehow. And then with the next one, it would probably be custody, or what we would consider a flash incarceration, which is 10 days to get their act together, and where we have 10 days to either violate or let them come back in the community with maybe an idea that they've done something that may cause them to have more time in custody for future. We had quite a few Department of Mental Health referrals. We had 37, which we linked to mental health for LA County. We have a mental health person on staff in our office that assesses those people that come in that were referred to them in case they may have a need, to show that those services will benefit them from hopefully not recommitting. We had 5 recommended to refer to Tarzana treatment if they had a severe narcotics situation that may not have been addressed in the past. We had a total of 498 home contacts. As you can see, we had more than we have supervised. Sometimes we do 2 or 3 per person. We have we divide our cases into risk scores. If we have ultra high, we're going to see those folks 3 times a month on average versus once or twice. We're going to increase the amount of times they report to the office. So you'll see a different number of field contacts or attempts, door knocks, residential verifications, or compliance checks, complete compliance checks, versus how many cases we have, because we will see someone maybe 2 or 3 times depending on the risk factor. And that's what I have for you. You have any questions?
I do. Of the 498 home contacts, are those contacts only because you have to go to the home, or are they supposed to check in with you in office?
In certain cases, we have, in all cases, I should say, they have a minimum of 1 contact in the office and 1 in the field. We have a variety of different field contacts. Some are, we have a homeless community that we supervise. We'll meet them at a local Starbucks or designated areas, or even their compounds where they continuously reside for a period of time. and so we try to make contact with them. But normally it's one in, one out, and those are random, so there's no calling them up saying we're coming over today.
Right.
We want to make sure they're one of the biggest things we do is a cat mouse game with and what I consider the most sophisticated probationers that are supervised in the country, because most of these guys should be on parole, but because of the way AB 9 works, probation is supervising them now. So it's a cat and mouse game. Where they living, where they're really staying, where their clothes at. They're constantly on the move. So we play catch up. So communication is vital. And I think for us, one of the good things that I can say honestly is that everyone that works in our office lives in the community. So they're invested. We're going to do things probably more common than someone that lives in an outside neighborhood. If they don't reside here, so they're very adamant about how they go approach their job, how they make sure they see people, because they're going to run into these folks in the mall, at the fair, at different locations, on the boulevard. So they're very committed. So that's very helpful in how we do things. So it seems to benefit us in the various programs and stuff. So that's one of the good reasons that we have a low amount of flashes, because these folks know, but we have a fair amount of revocations or violations, if you will. The leash is very short.
The ones that I see that were referred, the 5 that were the Tarzana with the
those
drug
are more severe. Remember, they're only being assessed if they were missed versus the first assessment. In other words, the majority of them are going to be assessed immediately, say they need treatment, whether it be mental health, narcotic treatment, outpatient, inpatient, if they need a detoxation. Those 5 are probably going to be most common detox. Someone that's come in, someone that's showing that they're not able to control their abuse of alcohol or narcotics, and they need to find a bed for them to detox before they can enter a program. Those are most common with those, the severe need that may relapse. They may have come out of custody fine.
Well, they may have come out of custody.
Yeah, they may have come out of custody fine and no problems. But then they have a relapse. They come back into the same friendships. Most of the time we tell these guys, hey, what's your trigger? Hey, I can't go to Little Rock. Then stay out of Little Rock. That may be a condition we add. You're going to stay out of Little Rock because we know that's going to trigger you, because that's where you can score dope and stuff like that. So it's simple things like that we try to do. With
Out of the 433, AB 109, how many do you feel just don't care or out?
I think in general, probably 10 to 15%. They're our most hardcore. Every month we submit a complex case review. Every deputy has to do one. They're one-pagers. They talk about your most complex case. Who's the person that's giving you the most headache that month? Who's the person that looks like they could use? And so we forward them to our division chiefs, and then they decide if they need a complete compliance check made with the arm unit. So they're going to be high on the red flag list. So we identify them, and each PO has to do that.
In the future, do you think, Robert, could we get those type of numbers and let us know, this commission? It would be kind of interesting to find out who those repeat offenders that get out and just are saying, hey, I'm out.
Yeah, and we can.
This was easy.
I don't know if we can get specific, but one of the, we have the same concerns that the sheriffs do.
Oh, sure.
It's not the sheriff's fault that if you put somebody away for 300 days and they get out in 18 days, that's not the field officer's fault.
No.
And it's the same with us. The restrictions we have with AB 109 are just as frustrating to us, where some guy absconds 12 different times. He just doesn't show up, or she doesn't show up anymore. And we have to violate them 12 times.
Yeah.
The most we can give them is 180 days.
Yeah.
That's the most under the way the law is written.
After 12 absences or 12
No,
missed?
12 different times of just not coming back. There is no sending them back to prison. It's crazy. I get it. But these are the, and this is the frustrating part for all of us, that if I have a client that, and here's the thing with AB 109, and this is why I'm hoping that I can maybe educate you with some knowledge a little bit. Once they get out, they have 2 days to report. If they don't show up in those 48 hours, so if they get out on Friday, they got to be there by Tuesday. If they don't show up, they're automatically up for violation. There's a very short leash because they're sophisticated. Again, I was just talking to Mr. Jericho a minute ago. We get cases where somebody's had 11 probation cases over their lifetime at 50 years old, for, say, the guy I was looking up yesterday, and he's on early release. We don't make that decision. The state
Well,
does.
and
So it's frustrating. It's
Yeah,
crazy. So these guys are going to play cat and mouse. They come, they
Sure.
show up, they don't show up. But yeah, if they have, unless they commit a new crime and they're charged and it's filed with the DA with that crime, they stay within the boundaries of AB 109 on violations. The max we can give them is 180 days. And I can't guarantee that they're going to spend 180 days flat time. We
That's
ask
after they haven't shown up for
Correct.
a
Well,
time.
and two, if you can catch them doing a crime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's another issue in itself. But on the same token is that I think it seems like that, trust me, I hear you, you do a phenomenal job, and it's
we
like
do.
it has to be frustrating. It has to be frustrating for the district attorney. It has to be
Sure.
incredibly frustrating for law enforcement, too. But it's interesting to see that it would be helpful for this commission to see those people that aren't showing up, the ones that are just saying, they're stubbing their nose up and saying, I'm not going to show. I mean,
Right.
what am I going to get my hand slapped? And unfortunately, you're right, there is no option of sending them back.
Yeah.
So
And you can
they know this. They know this.
And we can assume that they're out committing crimes, but sometimes they just disappear. They go to Vegas, they live there forever, and we don't catch them for a couple of years, until they commit a crime or get caught up in something small. Then they notify LA County and then bring them back. So, again, the leash is very short. They got 2 days to report, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. But we try, if they show up after that first time and don't show up 2 weeks later, and we give them an appointment, we're going to send a violation report immediately.
And I'm sure you got a staff of 433 for each one that just gives you that time. And
Our
frame.
numbers are what they are. They're going to get better. We're hoping to get 4 or 5 new deputies assigned to our office within the next 3 months. That'll be beneficial to everybody. It'll take some of the weight off.
We appreciate you.
Well, I
Let me
appreciate
just let
the
you know
comment.
what
What
you
are
do.
typical violations? You have here, we had 19 violations. What's a typical violation?
Normally, it could be a new arrest that make a felony arrest. Felony arrest could be anywhere from, we talked about vehicle theft to narcotics. Most time it's something serious if it's going to be filed. But we also have some that are going to be, those revocations are going to include a new arrest, most likely. The typical flash or violations that we do is going to be absconding. It's probably the most common. The desertion in some people that they just don't return and don't follow up with their meetings and stuff like that. Or they move out and we go to the house that they gave us status for. We knock on the door and it's vacant.
I just caught that you said felony arrest, vehicle, car theft. Is that
Well, that's one of them. I mean, there's
okay?
many.
Well, let's say just to consider, so they get arrested. Are they getting put back into jail, prison?
Right. Anytime they get a new arrest, there's hopes that there's 2 different courts we work with. The AB 109 court is down in L.A., and then you're going to work with, say, if it's a Lancaster court, you're going to be here at Superior Court at Michael Antonius building. That's going to be the new filing. The DA files, they go to court. If it's found to be truth, then they'll get sentenced for that case. And then if they get sentenced to, say the person has a long history of prison in and out, they may get 3 years of prison. Once that, then AB 109 will close their case, and they'll go to prison.
But if they get 3 years of prison, they're going to be out sooner than that. Am I correct in that? Sir?
Most likely.
Yeah. So it's just adding, more and more burden to, okay.
Right.
A legal revolving door.
A revolving door, yeah.
Unfortunately.
How many officers do you have in your office?
Right now we have 19.
19.
19.
So 19 officers doing 498 home contact. That's
They're busy. They're busy.
That's, appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Have these 2 new laws that we keep hearing about in Sacramento that appear to have increased the release rate of people from incarceration, has there been that's increased your workload, no doubt?
I think it has. I mean, numbers-wise, everybody's different because we have different assigned cases. We have some designated just for mental health to deal with those, and they become very good at it, so that's kind of helpful. And we're increasing our mental health deputies because we have more mental health cases, people that require services along with other things. So, yeah, I think the new laws are and I think that might be one of the reasons why we're being allotted 4 more new deputies within the next few months.
Well, you have 433 AB 109 cases, correct? How many did you have before that, prior to that?
I don't think it was any higher than that. I think we've been averaging around 430, 450, some of that neighborhood. And then we have a couple of deputies that are out on a medical leave. So the numbers, right now we have 19 active deputies, but we have like 22, I believe, assigned to us.
One deputy per violation?
No.
No,
I
I'm
don't think
kidding.
it works that way. No.
No, I was kidding.
No.
Do you have a sense whether or not the menace level of the people currently on release has gone up? Do you understand my question?
I do. I think for the very few, yes, I agree. I think that the repeat offenders, I think we deal, and we're talking about we spend a lot of time with repeat offenders. The 90% that don't bother nobody, they do their time, they take care of business, they do their programs, they really succeed quite easily. It's that 10 to 12% that do not. They're just constantly. And I think, but again, they know the rules, they know the game, they understand the manipulation of the system where I'm going to get 30 days and I'm going to be out. So, and to me and you, 30 days may sound like a lifetime. To them, it's coffee at Starbucks. It's all about the mindset. In my opinion, I can't imagine being locked up in a room the size of a bedroom for days or hours without. Yet for them, it's normal, and that's what I look at what we do now in probation is different than what we used to. Years ago, when I started 30 years ago, we were like mechanics. We did everything by our hands. It was mechanical, and now that we've advanced, everything's about the chip. So we're trying to get into the mindset to change their way of thinking. And so it's the chip that we're working with now more so than it is the physical part of it. If you look historically, all the torturing that happened in the museums and stuff you see, punishment was different than it is today. Today it's about the mindset. Can we get that person to change the way they think in order to keep them in line? It's like cars and computers.
That's interesting. Thank you for
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
California Highway Patrol.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So far, 2018 is not looking very good for us. In our jurisdiction, we're up to 29 fatal collisions. The 3-year average, we generally hover around 17 at this same point in our jurisdiction during the year. Our total traffic collisions are currently at 1,346, and we normally average around 1,100. Our current DUI arrests are at 443, and that's pretty far above our 3-year average, so I am happy that we are making an impact. Our 3-year average is normally 309, so quite a big jump in the number of DUI arrests we've been making. The DUI traffic collisions are also up 123 so far this year, and we normally average around 100. Our total enforcement contacts, 16,608, and we generally average around 15,700. Auto theft recoveries, we've had 9. 5 of them resulted in arrests, so those are definitely going up for us. And we did have a bill passed. The legislature went to the governor that would have given us 120 new officers every year for the next 5 years to bring us just back to the level we were at when the 2008 crisis hit and we lost 500 bodies. And to give a history on that, when that happened and we lost the 500, we were already at the same level we were in the 70s. Then we lost 500 more on top of that. And then you factor in the population growth, so we were already due to, we should have received more. But then the governor vetoed that legislation, so it doesn't look like we're going to get any more of an increase to our personnel anytime soon. So that's where we're at.
The fatalities up. Anything? Is it anything to do with DUI?
We have had a handful of those 29 have been DUI related. I don't have the exact breakdown, but I do know personally of at least 5 or 6 of those 29 that had to do with alcohol or drugs.
Which would you say is a bigger problem, distracted driving or under the influence driving?
It's tough to say. I would say they're both around the same for us as far as if you look at the numbers from when cell phones became more prominent in vehicles and the way they've gone up, I think it is a huge deal in the overall accident picture as far as the overall numbers of traffic collisions. As far as the fatal accidents, I'm not sure what the breakdown is on distracted versus impairment.
23 DUI collisions. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Any other questions?
I want to ask a question, but it's not a question actually, and I don't want to be noisy person too, but I want to go back to the backup traffic on Avenue K on 14 in the morning during the rush hours. There is anything you can do, put some sort of a, temporarily caution sign over there? Because the way I look at it, it's a matter of time. Somebody's going to killed over there. I seen myself a couple of minor fender benders, but yeah.
So I did see that, and I know we talked about it last meeting,
Yes, sir.
that they are reconfiguring that entire
Yeah,
intersection.
I know, and it's
I don't know if in the meantime maybe they can time the lights differently or not, but if not, I know that it's between the city and Caltrans to do that. But as far as warning signs, I can certainly contact our Caltrans coordinator out here, the supervisor,
Yeah, maybe
and ask
they
him
can put some kind of
to
a-
put something there that maybe during certain times of the day especially in the mornings when the traffic starts backing up there, that might be helpful.
Maybe just let them know, and it's a slow-moving traffic or stop traffic from them.
I'll reach out to him today and see if that's a possibility.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Auto thefts, were there any prior arrests on those, 9 of them?
Probably. I didn't check to see the priors on any particular individual, but generally speaking, the ones that I've talked to my people about, it's generally people that have had multiple priors that we're arresting.
So you're talking about connecting it to AB 109?
I was just kind of curious to see if maybe there was a possibility of seeing, we keep hearing about AB 109 and what we're going through, and it'd be kind of interesting to see some kind of stats that would kind of connect maybe the dots a little bit for the commission to kind of look at and say, well, and at least give reports back to us that says this is a problem. I mean, the ones that are getting, I don't know. What's your thought?
No, I agree. I think we'd be surprised to find how many of those are AB 109. The bigger question is, we can gather all the data we want. What are we going to be able to do with it?
I think that's...
It's not like we can go to Sacramento and say, look, this is what's happening. I mean, it's a situation where everything we look at, since I've been on this commission and AB 109 passed, it's not a good thing. But what do we do about it? As a city, we don't have the right within L.A. County to change anything, unless I'm mistaken, correct?
I think it's gathering the information and kind of putting it back to AB 109. I mean, that helps us come and gather the information and say, this is the problem. Obviously, it's an ongoing situation. And it would be interesting for this commission to understand that a lot of this stuff, 433 AB 109 has been released. There's 5 that major drug. There's this 19 arrests. Is it related to AB 109? Are the DUIs, the auto thefts at the CHP? Do they have priors? It'd be interesting for the commission to understand if there's some type of link. But I don't know. Maybe I'm asking for too much.
No, I think what you're asking makes sense. The question is, how hard would it be for the captain there to get that information, or any other agency to get that information as it relates to AB 109 being part of the problem? I mean, when you have auto theft recovery, you guys don't go that in depth into it as to find out if they're part of the early release. I mean, that's almost not the issue with you, correct?
I mean, we do run them for priors, and we know that when we go ahead and when we book them, we certainly know that there's priors. it would take a little more effort to go to find out if AB 109 had anything to do with them, that particular individual being out.
Mr. Bozigian.
Yeah, since the vice mayor's not here, maybe I can address that in a conversation that came up at the council meeting last night. It is very frustrating, and until people realize that their governor and their state have let them down and putting it all on the locals, and that's happened, there's not a lot we can do on that regard. The vice mayor, through a program, Ring, has put a program together to try to make neighborhoods a hardened target for burglaries. The mayor talked yesterday about using cameras and technology to make Lancaster a hardened target. What each city is left with, by the way, is just saying, let's make ourselves a harder target to do crime and let someone go elsewhere, because the state and the system doesn't care about punishing people or keeping them there. So that's sort of the direction we're trying to go, is take care of Lancaster, catch people that do bad things, maybe encourage people to go elsewhere to do their bad deeds. I don't know if Mr. DeRico wants to add anything to that.
Well, I would say, too, that on the other side of it, and something I was going to bring up today, is the impact on resource management, that all these decisions on a legislative level that just keep continuing, that impact law enforcement. I can tell you one that recently being discussed about review of personnel history for law enforcement officers, making an exposure that's not even the same standard for the general public or for corporations, is ridiculous. Then things we have with bail, release of bail, amnesty for fines and bails and forfeitures. Now even down to parking, where the state and the county do nothing to assist us with parking fines and receive a huge apportionment. Now we deal with an issue related to allowing people on payment schedules based on that, because it's prohibiting them from registering their vehicles. So understanding that for us, like I can give you an example from just citations, where from the Metro Court 5 years ago, we were in that close to $70,000, $80,000 worth range a month of collection, is down well below $10,000. Okay, so what's happening is we're still paying for the enforcement, and costs have gone up. Remember, let's talk about it. Public safety in this city is about $32 million a year. Okay, the largest proportion of that is for the sheriff's department. Deputy sheriffs now are about cost the community $2.29 a minute per contract minute. A 40-hour one-person car is $270,000 with liability. So as these things keep happening, and with the state doing what they've done and push things down, and then the county's trying to deal with their side of it because the burden is more being carried there and along for the district attorney and the courts, ultimately it costs the community money. It's the money resources that we're investing in public safety, that what return are we getting based on that, and the support from our state representatives and our state legislature. So that's part of the frustration. And Mr. Bozigan's point is exactly right. Our council, and as well as you as a commission, make recommendations on things that we can do to fortify our community, to make it a more hardened target and less attractive for criminal activity. And you can tell from probation they have the same issues, that burden that have been put on them. But at the same time, is what recommendations can we do as a commission through our council to our state representatives, and start really voicing this at the county level and the state level to what the actual financial impact has been. Okay, so things that we could do program-wise, and in fact, I was going to talk about, Mr. Bozigan and Mr. Cottle and I attended a meeting on what we're going to do with a great idea that I think has worth for Challenger. You know, probation's closing Challenger as a juvenile camp. They're going to be moving forward. There's some great ideas. Maybe that's funding that we could use, that we're spending rearresting the same people over and over and over again, and that we could spend for more programs for intervention and being more proactive on the front side. The other one is then a good thing that's happened is that we're being made part of a group with the 5th District with probation, trying to deal with now diversion. The Board of Supervisors has decided that probation's mean and they shouldn't be involved in diversion for youth anymore. So now we're going to be moving that diversion out to community-based organizations. Well, how do you vet them? Who's going to do that? How do we make an evaluation of the quality of things that they're doing and impacting? And we're handing a supervision that's based on criminal activity over to a nonprofit group out in the community. Then what does it have? So it's the carrot and stick syndrome again, is where are we at here? What's the incentive for changing that behavior? And that's a discussion that's going on right now. How does that look? How do we manage that? But again, those are all going to be local dollars being spent to deal with those issues. Okay, so I think as a collective group, those discussions are good to have in here. Okay, it's good to sunlight these things for the public and not be shy about putting it out there. But there also probably needs to be some things that we do locally that we voice and work that up the chain. And I think, that's part of the frustration we deal with all the time. Our council has to own the crime rate. They own it. They're elected. They bear the burden, and they have very little ability to do something about some of the things we're dealing with. So creativity is important. I think we have a great working relationship among all our law enforcement partners here. But again, let's understand the city of Lancaster bears the burden for the resource cost as that relates to that, based on our tax base and our contract relationships. Sorry, got on my soapbox there, Mark.
No.
Never. First time. Sorry about that.
I'm depressed. Thank you.
Thanks. You're shocked, huh, Howard?
Thank you, Lee. Mr. Bozigian, thank you, sir. Any other questions? None? Moving forward. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Jocelyn. Oh, did I skip somebody? Oh, I'm sorry. District Attorney. I apologize.
That's okay. Statistics. For the month of September 2018, we filed 105 felonies, 246 misdemeanors, and that's just for the city of Lancaster, compared to September 2017, 115 felonies, 389 misdemeanors. So slightly fewer felonies, significantly less misdemeanors. And I don't know why there's a lot less misdemeanors. It goes in waves. Sometimes they're higher, sometimes they're lower. The only other issue I wanted to bring up, and after Mr. DeRico's speech, I'm somewhat hesitant to bring this up, but there was a case that came down out of the Ninth Circuit, so it's binding on us, and it has to do with illegal. Basically, the way it would affect Lancaster and Palmdale, and our office has to do with illegal camping, and they deal with them a lot in the misdemeanor courts, and I have to go down and talk to the judges about them. They do comprise a significant number of cases, and there's a case that came out of the Ninth Circuit. We just got a brief on it yesterday, our office, and basically the bottom line is we can no longer cite people for illegal camping unless the number of beds available exceeds the number of homeless people. So generally the people that are being cited for illegal camping are people with no place to stay, homeless, and the case that came down now basically says that if there aren't enough shelter beds to house all of the homeless people in the community, that you can no longer cite them. So for our office, what we're being told is that in order to file charges for sleeping in public or illegal camping, we need information that says there was a bed available for that particular person, and nonetheless they chose to camp illegally. So I'm not sure. This is something that I just was presented with yesterday. I thought I'd bring it to you all's attention. Maybe Lee knows something about it. I'm not sure, but there you have it. More good news, I guess.
Explain that one. I'm confused.
Well,
Basically, they're telling you that you cannot cite a homeless person for living in a tent unless you can prove he had somewhere else to stay in a facility with a bed.
Right. The Ninth Circuit said it was cruel and unusual punishment to ticket somebody for sleeping in public if there was nowhere else for them to go. It's essentially the reasoning.
So if they break into a building that's empty, you can't cite them.
Well,
Let's say
there may be trespassing laws that would make that different, but essentially what we see, our office sees, are citations for illegal camping. So generally, generally that presents itself in the form of a homeless campment that takes up residence in a local park, let's say, and the sheriffs are notified. They go in and they cite everybody for illegal camping because you're not allowed to be in the park, say, after dark. And we get these cases, all these citations. We would file them for a violation of the usually it was a municipal code violation. It's a misdemeanor. We can't do that anymore, apparently, unless we have information that says there was a homeless shelter for these people to stay at, and nonetheless they chose to spend the night in the park. So, I mean, I can read it verbatim to you from the brief that our office put out. It says, law enforcement officers seeking a prosecution for public sleeping should include in written reports the relative numbers of area homeless and the area shelter beds available on the date of the violation. Prosecutors initiating a prosecution for violation of a public sleeping ordinance should confirm that this evidence is sufficient to support prosecution. Because the ruling in this particular case is now clearly established law within the Ninth Circuit, officers should seek and follow the advice of the Attorney General, County Counsel, City Attorney, or other civil legal advisor as to the civil liability implications of this ruling. So I think that's a different issue than what we're dealing with. But
So that officers have knowledge of that beforehand. So the officers are supposed to have knowledge of that prior.
I'm sorry?
The officer's supposed to have knowledge of that prior before citing.
Correct. Yeah, it would be included in the report. In other words,
How's that going to work, Lieutenant? Yeah. Just throw another thing on you right there, huh?
Why did this case get to the Ninth Circuit? Why is it a federal case?
because it was a constitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment. That was the argument that was being made.
And who was the plaintiff? In other words, who brought that?
I'm sure it was brought by, so generally what would happen is somebody got a ticket for sleeping. They made the argument, how can you cite me for sleeping in public? There's nowhere else for me to stay. So generally that is where the issue starts, and it goes its way. Eventually the argument was made to the Ninth Circuit that this was cruel and unusual punishment. You're ticketing me, you're fining me for sleeping in public, but I had nowhere else to go. And the court said, yes, you win. It's cruel and unusual punishment. So that statute's unconstitutional unless you can show that there was a place for them to stay. The case, if you're interested, I can give you the citation. You can read the case. Probably have
That's
other
enough to
things.
decipher at the moment, I think. Any other questions for the district attorney?
No.
Well, I can say that's a trend. We're dealing with that right now with illegal food vendors. Okay, and then that's already been, you're going to cover that. Okay, Jocelyn's going to cover that one because that's another ray of sunshine for us.
Okay.
Because
Sir?
they can't get a lease.
Yeah. Thank you for your endless duties. Thank you so much. Jocelyn.
Okay, so just to build on the good news, about 3 weeks ago, the governor signed SB 946 concerning sidewalk vendors, and basically takes away virtually all local control of how we can police our sidewalks and what we can and cannot allow. Basically, we are allowed to have an ordinance that regulates sidewalk vendors, but the requirements for the regulation are very, very strict. We can't stop them from being on our sidewalks unless there's a health issue. We can't cite them for a misdemeanor offense. It is only to be punished by an administrative fine, no matter how many times they violate the law. And if they can't afford to pay the fine, then we have to reduce the fine. So that's really good news.
Okay, question. Whoa. I got a question here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
no.
what I'm hearing is, if I wanted to get a cart and sell breakfast food, I could park outside of Crazy Otto's. There's nothing he can do about it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
The only thing I can do is to make sure that you have the proper health certificate and that you're complying with whatever reasonable time, place, and manner regulations our ordinance might include. And aside from that, Mr. Herr is out of luck. Yeah.
So if they don't have the proper health permit, you cite them.
I think we would cite them and we would notify the health
We
department.
would notify
by all
the
means.
health department, which means they would move across the street to the other corner or down the street and continue the thing. So we have nothing in place that says they've had so many infractions of health department codes until the health department goes out there and shuts them down. and then the likelihood of them switching carts or painting the cart or whatever it may be, they'll go to another location and do it
Not to
again.
mention the fact, Mr. Herr is subject to surprise inspections from the health
Surprise
department.
inspections at any time.
So these people aren't subject to surprise inspections.
do they have to have an
Theoretically,
A,
they
B,
could
or
be.
C on their cart?
I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know how vigorously the health department
According to
intends
the
to regulate this.
county health department, street vendors, they get, I believe they have to bring their cart to their facility. They get inspected once a year,
Really?
and the fee is $200.
And how often do you, is all the restaurants that you have, how many do you?
3 months, every 3 months.
Every 3 months.
You know, there's a reason why it will cost you $100 to rent a U-Haul truck to move to California and $500 to move out. Because this is just, it's this displacement, and the fairness is just leaving quickly.
Is there any way we could have a representative from the health department here to give us their take on things?
Let's see who we
I
can
mean,
round up.
You
Yeah,
know, to have
absolutely.
them here at our next meeting and say, you know, we'd like to hear what your take is on this, or how it's going to impact you, and what's your thoughts on it? Because I agree, Mr. Herr, who works his tail off and gives back to the community endless, and yet every 3 months, which he complies with the rules and regulations that need to be done, and yet we have, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now,
Let's get somebody out for that. I just want to, one other thing I want to point out, the administrative fine is $100 for the first offense, $250 for the second within a calendar year, and $500 for the third within a calendar year, and it can never go higher than that. And of course, then we have to reduce it if they can't afford
If they
to.
can't.
For $1,000, I can rent the sidewalk.
But with that, if they can't afford to pay it, the fine has to be reduced.
Yes.
Yeah.
And evaluation for a repayment based on
And this is on any public land? Is that?
It says sidewalks, but I imagine it might be applicable elsewhere. I haven't spent a lot of time analyzing all the law because, frankly, it was a little depressing when I first came across it. So.
Sidewalk, when you say sidewalk vendors, isn't there some type of something that can be put into place that sidewalks are for things to keep moving, correct? I mean, to sit there on a sidewalk and be stationary, aren't you blocking a public right-of-way? Aren't you?
Well, as long as you're not impeding the flow of pedestrians, there's nothing that you can do about that. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this law.
If we protest, we have to keep moving, correct? On a public right-of-way, you have to keep. So why is it that street vendors can just pull up and camp right there and say impeding? So if impeding means if you walk, they're not impeding if somebody has to walk around them. Don't know. I know. I just.
Okay.
we
my
can try
question
to get State
is-
Senator Lara down here. That's who wrote the bill.
What can the city do to stop if me and a group of my associates decide to put in vending carts at City Park every night? So that means you can't do anything about it.
Now, there is a provision in this law that if that a city park that has an agreement or a contract with a concessionaire of some sort, for example, our Monday Bites at Owen Memorial Park, that we could prohibit sidewalk vendors from being there at that time.
But if they're on the sidewalk in front of City Park, it's okay.
Actually, that may be wrapped into that, but it's such a narrow provision in any event that, I mean, it applies to one night a week. So
I was going to say that's only one night a week. That
Yeah.
doesn't stop me from going out there the other nights for softball and setting up a truck and.
Yeah, but they have a license. They have a contract with somebody on the park that does that. So if they're there,
They do?
Yeah, I believe
Every
so.
night?
Don't they have a
No,
not every night?
not depending. If they're running a tournament or something, but
They're-
at the same time, there's other issues to address it. Okay, so that within itself, fine, but the health permit is the big one. Okay,
Yeah, so
and
no
if
matter
it-
what, they
and
have
if
to
it's not a
compliance. They have to
licensed health
compliance the
permit-
county health code, correct?
Right, correct. There's other avenues to deal with this issue. I think specifically what it was about was how it was being enforced. Okay, what was the focus for enforcement? Was it about blocking the sidewalk? What was it? Okay, so I think the thing is, and remember, just because this decision came down, and it's a case decision based on or legislative thing, there's going to be challenges that follow that. Again, for the legitimate business person, and we run to this with every business, right? You know, you have a lot of businesses that operate that don't pay workman's comp, don't pay their insurance, don't pay sales tax, do all kinds of things. This is just another thing we need to look at as it addresses this, and what's the impact versus the legitimate business folks. And we run into that all the time. I mean, we have just had a discussion this morning in our office about that, about what's required. You know, the simple one came about just having your vehicle registered, okay, driving around on a suspended license, all these things. When you start thinking about the totality of this, that's why I was talking about resource management for collection, because all these things are being impacted. So the pool of money is getting smaller and smaller, and everything is becoming some kind of protected class. You know, we're seeing that with homelessness. We're talking about things that impact, and someone identifies that it specifically addresses a certain group, so some action, knee-jerk reaction takes place legislatively to address it, not understanding the extensive impact it has on other things and how it impacts the general public at large. That's not usually the consideration these days. Things seems to be in a trend that we're going to identify a specific issue, we're going to do what we think is necessary to assist that issue, not understanding the overall impact it has on the quality of life of other people. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, as far as I know, there's no protected class for certain things here. Now this is something that looks like that we have people that are street vendors now are a protected class based on some legislation that's been passed, not thinking how it impacts legitimate folks.
Maybe this should be passed on to our representatives from state level, Representative Russ, and see what you can come back with answers and see what they have to think about this nice little thing that's the city of Lancaster and is going to have to deal with. Something, I don't know, something to think about.
I think it's more likely it's a county issues, no matter what. You know, because I said it before, they have to compliance county health code. You know, especially in the sanitation.
Who was the representative that?
State
Catherine
Senator
Barger?
Lara,
That would be Barger, our county
No.
who wrote the law?
Yeah.
Or who sponsored it was Senator Lara, State Senator Lara. I'm not sure where that senator is from. I can look into that.
Russ, what do you think? You contact and find out those type of answers for, because obviously, wow.
So on a positive note, just to circle back
Please.
on what Meg and I generally work on, we continue to work with code enforcement and public safety on sort of quality of life issues, tackling those basically one property at a time. We've, in the last few months, we've abated a lot of nuisance vehicles, inoperatives, you know, wrecked, abandoned vehicles. So we remove those and destroy them. The Sheriff's Department over the summer started issuing the loud party citations. So that's been successful. We just had a number of appeal hearings on those. They were all upheld, which is always nice. And after years of attempting to obtain the voluntary compliance of a absentee property owner through a misdemeanor criminal case, we finally got a long-running nuisance abandoned house demolished, and that was very exciting news. And so, yay. And that's all I have.
What about the apartment building on Beach?
Beginning of November, there will be some movement.
Okay.
Could we bring that up on next meeting and put that on the agenda for some type of answer on that food vendor thing? I'm kind of curious of what the representatives have to say on the state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll reach out this week.
All great news. Anything else? Jocelyn, thank you. I know how busy you are and all the things that you do. It's just like, it's crazy.
Explains why so many taco stands out there on the east side. I've seen, I think I count 8 within 3 miles radius.
Enders?
only one of them has, permit, I think. They have, those LA County sticker on it. And actually, I stopped by one of them because I love taco, But it wasn't that great, and the way they prepare, they only had one knife. They use one knife to cut everything, And after I look at that, oh, no, thank you.
Again, on a lighter note, thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you so much. Mr. DeRico.
Okay, just a couple other things to go over. I want to give you an update on our quality of life crew out here with our contract guys and L.E.T. Wagner and Randy. Right, so far we've had a number of homeless camp cleanups. We're up to 62. We have currently another 38 that have been posted for future cleanup. We have over 148. They've made 148 site visits and contacts. The number of shopping carts recovered has been up to 760. And we've sent letters of agency out to 540 properties throughout the city that are currently vacant land to be able to address issues on that property. But I just have a few here of just the size of some of these issues. At 15th West and K8, there was 40 tons of material removed and 40 shopping carts just at one location. At 25th Street West and Avenue K, total tonnage there was 140 tons and 15 shopping carts. And that at Avenue I and 20th West, total tonnage there was 15 tons. So that's just the volume of material that's being removed.
Now you say 25th and K?
Pardon me? 20th Street, or I'm sorry, 25th Street West and K, in the field south of there. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I think the thing is, it just kind of goes to my next thing. A lot of the material that we're finding here too, what's driving our crime numbers, as you can see statistically, as we look at our percentages, larcenies. Okay, and a large amount of these, like bike frames, then the reason bike frames are there is because they're serialized. So every other part of the bike gets recycled for money, and the bike frame gets left because they can't turn that in for recycling because it's serialized. So there's all kinds of materials. So a big program that that Yenny's doing right now from crime prevention, and we along with the city, is a program of telling people at 9 o'clock at night, make sure everything you have is locked up. Fortify your home, close your garage, make sure your vehicles are locked, and these things that are impacting our numbers. Especially things that are commonly people will report for a theft, but how many people have the serial number for their bike actually somewhere where it's recoverable, and for the sheriff's department to be able to arrest that individual for either stealing the bike or for receiving stolen property. So I'm sure if we really wanted to go with reasonable cause arrest, which is a term I could probably explain another time, we would drive Mr. Sherwood crazy with bicycle frame cases, okay? Not to mention the evidentiary clog we would have at the station to store them all. But some of these encampments have 20 to 30 bicycle frames at them. So obviously those are things, when you go back to our larceny numbers, are driving some of our numbers because people are reporting their bikes stolen, as they should. Okay, so it's now working in a big program for educating the public on how to help us impact that number as it relates to larcenies, and especially how that low level that's considered through our criminal justice process now, what's actually going to happen. And then in light of the fact they're homeless and all those things. And that's part of what Mr. Sherwood's talked about with Judge Estes in their diversion court. Likely that's where those cases would go. Now, so when you look at that just from, again, I'm back on my resource management soapbox, okay, and you look at that kind of tonnage and the labor that's attached with removal is significant. So the idea that folks are just not having an impact on us financially in the community, that is not true. That is absolutely not true. It's significant. Now, of course, Lancaster is one of the few cities that's actually taken an approach to deal with that with Kensington, which I hope will help us too, is filing cases as it relates to having availability and folks not taking the opportunity to participate in that availability. So that's something we're excited about happening here from an enforcement standpoint. So not just to help people that want help, but also from the enforcement standpoint to get us leverage to be able to deal with those issues. Then, the big thing is shorter days out there. So it's that safety when folks are leaving work or you're in the parking lots in our shopping centers thing. Just be aware. Be vigilant. look around your surroundings. It's dark. People can secrete themselves out there and victimize people. So really just another heightened sense of awareness out there for this time of year. And then I think a big one is our city events are amazing. Streets of Lancaster, it's a long few days, and especially our Parks Department does an amazing job. Public Works Department did a great job. I appreciate my folks in public safety and the participation from the Sheriff's Department out there managing it. Once again, we got through a rather large event with no issues. We did not have one incident. We didn't have to make one arrest. We didn't have to remove anybody from the premises. And I think that goes to with the 22 events that are operated every year by this city in collaboration with our community partnerships that I've been here 9 years now, I think we've had to arrest maybe 3 people in 9 years at 22 events a year. So I think that goes to say how well the planning's done, the operation planning and tactical planning by law enforcement along with the Parks Department and their planning and IAPs and our plans for those things as well. I think that's something we should be very proud of as a community. And on that note, we got Boulevard coming up on October 27th. The event will take place downtown on Lancaster Boulevard in the hours of 1 to 5. So I think that was a good move we did last year, not to deal with some of the issues we were dealing with the late night participation. It was very well attended still by families last year, so we're going to repeat that again this year. So just want to invite the public. It's a great event. It's probably one of our most well-attended events of the year. And that's all I have.
Any questions?
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Lee. Thank you so much. Russ?
First off, I'm buying
We know what you're going to buy.
buying a card. I'm going to start selling omelets in front of Jim's place. Jim's place. Big omelets, too.
Big one.
Big omelets.
Lights, everything, huh?
The whole bit. Real quickly, the thing with from Ricardo Laura, the senator, it's one of the many little things. It just signed by the governor a little while back. It does allow municipalities a little piece of whatever it is to give them business licenses. They have to make it where whoever has the little cart has to have a business license. If the municipality chooses so. And it will also ask them to abide by the state tax laws. Of course, the money is all cash, so who knows how that one works out. So that's one part of it. The resources part of the recent things, the governor just signed 800 some odd different bills. Haven't really gone through all of them yet. Vanessa will be here next month, and she'll have a whole list, the breakdown of it all, of everything going on. One of the things, though, SB 1437, which is going to keep you busy, eliminates the felony murder rule. And what the felony murder rule is, if you were an accomplice in a murder, you're treated as a murderer. If you were to stand beside the guy but did not pull the trigger, you're treated as a murderer. Well, this is now making it to where anybody who was an accomplice, stand beside the person who pulled the trigger, they have to be retried. And this is retroactive. Yeah, it's a retroactive thing, so it can go back decades on folks. So it's going to be quite a pull of the resources of your office, number of offices. So that is the one thing that's pulled forward. On a lighter note, we're having our self-defense workshop for women coming up here on the 20th, I believe, the 15th at 5:30 at Allen Valley Partners for Health. And it's our fourth one we've had so far. And it's a great little workshop teaching women self-defense. You must go out to it. It's lots of fun. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Russ.
Russ, thank you.
Okay.
And we'll see you on the next agenda for hopefully some answers from our state representative, too. So.
Vanessa will have those. I'm actually moving.
You're moving? Where are you moving to?
The the Capitol. I'll be working up at the Capitol. So.
So you make a special trip down then. That's kind of cool.
Well, not yet. Not yet. Well, for you, of course. Of course, that's for all of you.
Okay. We'll see you then. Thanks, Russ. Public business from the floor, non-agendized items. This is the portion of the agenda that allows an individual the opportunity to address the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission on any item not on the agenda. Regarding the commission business, speaker cards must be submitted prior to the beginning of the portion of the agenda. Please complete the speaker card. The secretary identified the subject. We respectfully request that you fill out the cards. Boom, you have 3 minutes. So we have 3 cards. And my first card is Marva Greenleaf. That's you. Come on down.
Thank you, one and all. I have to tell you, it's just, I've been in this community for over 30 years, and it's been blooming me well. I consider this to be time well spent. So thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. We are great together, and my intention is to be here for the greater good. My intention is the greater good. I've been noticing the last 5 years that the gun show has been more aggressive. Now we have 3 a year, and they're strategically timed to be during our Poppy Festival in April, and now it's the weekend before Thanksgiving, and it's January after Christmas. And I agree with what I've heard here today. We need to be more focused on our communities and what we can do right here. And I believe just looking at becoming more aware of what's happening there, I don't have any attachment to what goes on other than helping us to become more educated. I understand we get tax revenues from those shows 3 times a year. I am curious about what the city does with those tax revenues. I've been here long enough to know that we were the city that banned sex. And we've had our little milestones of being able to stand up. Remember? We had our milestones to stand up when hate crime ran through the community, when the Mongols came through the community. And I think this is a wonderful, important time to show that we can create change within our very own community, no matter what the state or the county or the federal does. So from someone who still loves, I have to appreciate the Valley Oasis too, because domestic violence, we became known as the capital for that. I personally have benefited for that over 25 years ago, and it has grown me very well. So that's all I wanted to do today, is to bring before you public safety. I brought it to different leadership, started with Vice Mayor Marv Christ, and I was told that it's the culture that supports it. But my understanding now is that the culture is domestic violence and domestic terrorism. And the less weapons we have amongst us, the healthier we all are. Waste Management donated $50,000 for tasers for our sheriff's department to help us have options in regards to dealing with one another. Stinking thinking is definitely the root of all addiction. So we have a lot to do. I'm a member of the AV Wellness Coalition, the Antelope Valley Partners for Health, and I've watched that blossom over the last 5 years. There's much to be proud of right here, and I'm grateful to have these almost 3 minutes to speak my mind. Thank you.
Marva, thank you. We appreciate everything you've done for this community. Thank you so much. Heather Varden.
Hi. I spoke last month about the importance of food distribution to the homeless during progressive engagement, and I really just wanted to follow up on that. I think my question was mostly answered by the food distribution conversation that Mr. Jericho gave earlier. So I just look forward to continuing to work together to end the homelessness in our community. And everything that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. I really appreciated the first speaker. I love that sort of energy. I love to bring that sort of energy, although I was sitting there thinking, why do you want to hear from someone who makes such bad decisions? I could have stayed home and slept in. But, you know, it's important to hear these things. There's a couple of things that came to mind. D.A. Sherwood, part of the county's homeless consortium business is they are now taking a real look at how they can support camping that's sanctioned. And let's face it, we have 5,000 homeless people, so we're never going to get up with Kensington or any of these other things to having 5,000 beds for people. And we really need a practical way to deal with it. I know that it's like a Mel Gibson Road Warriors type of a situation in these camps, and I wouldn't want to be in one, but there are ways to make it a little more safe than just being out on the street. But I appreciate the good humor that goes around this room, because we have to keep our heads up. These are inexhaustible problems. The bottom is falling out, and we have to do our best with that. And the fact that we are working it brings me comfort. The fact that I know many of you good people and the dedication you show to this stuff, that helps me. Last night at the council meeting, they showed the video of the deputy who pushed the woman's wheelchair home out of kindness. It was just the right thing to do. And there's a lot of the right things getting done. And a lot of these things that touch people are the city events that bring people in, and the personal efforts of all of us to just make the world a better place. And that's why I was so inspired by Lieutenant Jones, the story I heard of you helping out someone who had been victimized by crime. And in the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, with liberty and justice for all. We need liberty and justice for all. And by helping that person, you dispensed justice in a way that will change a life. And we got to do it one person at a time. Thank you all for the efforts you put in. It's an incredible job. It's an incredible challenge, and we'll meet it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Commissioner comments, anything?
No.
No? We'll stand adjourned until Wednesday, November 14th at 10 a.m.